Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. I know I haven't posted much or that consistently and I wanted to apologize for that. I have just been caught up with a lot of life stuff and schooling, but I promise from this post onward, I will try to be more consistent to get videos out for y'all. And today we'll be discussing a new what if. Yes, I know this would be the third what if I have started without finishing the last two. Well, three if you count what if Wrathful was in Dragon Ball. I promise I will continue those what ifs, I just asked for a little more time as I know some people do want those series to continue, and my other two special videos, like what if Goku traveled to the My Hero Academia universe, and my own story of Dragon Ball Next Generation. I promise I will be working on those videos as well. Now into the explanation of this what if, as the title may confuse some viewers. We can all say very confidently that Dragon Ball isn't the perfect anime lore wise with all the retcons for story's sake, and with all the stuff that is canon and non-canon, and the releases of the shows that mess up previous installments of Dragon Ball franchise. Not saying Dragon Ball is bad, of course, this is my favorite anime for life, but I thought about how Dragon Ball would be if everything was planned out. No retcons or non-canon stuff, and the series sequence comes out in order, like going from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z, to Daima, to Super, and then to end it off with GT. And we'll be making everything that isn't canon to be canon, like movies and such. But I won't be including the show Dragon Ball Heroes, as that would be too much to fit into one timeline, plus Dragon Ball Heroes have some crazy things happening. Also, one big rule is that the continuity will be based off what came first. For example, we'll be keeping Z Bardock rather than Super Bardock. And I know some may not like it and think Super Bardock is better, but that is a rule I would keep. So for other characters like Broly, we will be using Z Broly instead of Super Broly. And for origins like Goku, since that was changed, we will keep it that he was sent to Earth to destroy it, rather than Bardock saving his son like how Super told the backstory. The rules for the movies is that we would have to let it play out the same as it actually did as much as possible. The only things we could change is how it gets included from the canon story. I want to keep the same rule for the canon story, but that may be hard to do. So if I need to do some little tweaks in the main story, I will do that just so that it could fit the uncanon movies that we will be making canon into the story. So I will be going through the story of Dragon Ball as if it was planned out from the start, without changing anything that was stated before for plot reasons of the current saga. Pretty sure that covers it all, but if you do have any questions or inputs, you can always leave them down in the comments of this video. Also, if y'all are interested, I own a Discord server for anyone who wants to join and talk more about Dragon Ball with me and other viewers. Maybe give us some of your own ideas of what ifs, and maybe in the future, I could do them. I'm trying to reignite the Discord server, so if you want to join, check the link in the description down below. For today's question in the video comes from Kevin McIntosh? I'm sorry, I don't think I can say that right. It comes from Kevin, and his question is, what is your favorite Dragon Ball Z movie, Lord Slug or Broly Legend? I don't know if he's asking me to pick between the two, or just overall. I'm just gonna do both. Between the two, definitely gonna be Broly, the Legendary Super Saiyan. I'm guessing that would be the first one. That's my favorite one between that one and Lord Slug. But my overall favorite movie, I think it's the one with Gogeta. When I don't remember what the movie was called, but it was with Janemba and Gogeta, and it was pretty fun. It's not even just the Gogeta being revealed or being shown in the movie. It's kind of like everything that happens, like all the hellish people from the underworld come over to Earth, and we see Gotenks and Gohan and Videl deal with that. I think overall the movie of everything was pretty fun to watch, and there was never really a boring moment. I think, to me, that's probably the best movie. Maybe, or either it's between that one or the first Broly movie. Thank you so much for your question. If you would like to be featured in my next video, just comment down below your question, whether it's about Dragon Ball, another anime, or personal, and maybe your comment will be picked for the next video. Without further ado, let's dive into the first part of what if Dragon Ball was planned from the start. Now we would not be starting right to Goku landing on Earth, but altering backstories before Planet Vegeta's destruction. To be stated here are some events that would happen before the beginning of Bardock's original backstory from the episode of Bardock. King Vegeta would attempt to kill both Paragus and baby Broly, since Broly was stronger than his own son, and could have had Broly be a threat to his lineage. Also, King Vegeta would have sent his second son Tarball off planet for being too weak to his liking, and basically disowning him. At this point, Vegeta was still a kid, but knew about his younger brother and didn't like him as well for being so weak. We would also see the scene of Beerus going to planet Vegeta when Vegeta was a kid, as he would see him, but to us, the viewers, we wouldn't see Beerus just a shadowy figure, only to be known as the God of Destruction. Going to Bardock, he would have been sent to a planet with his crewmates, to take over a planet called Planet Cereal. They would attack the planet as Bardock would end up finding Granola's mother, as she would be holding an infant Granola. Now some people may argue that Z Bardock would kill them, but he isn't completely heartless, and the fact I made Granola an infant instead of a little kid was because of the fact that Kid Granola did make Bardock think of his own son, making him spare the mother and son. I would say this would just be enough for Bardock to pity them and spare their lives. Bardock would also fight the Heaters, but instead of doing it to protect Granola and his mother, it would be because he craves battle. This change in the origins of the Granola arc helped keeps the plot for that arc stay the same, but alters with having Z Bardock's character rather than Super Bardock. Obviously as viewers we wouldn't see these events till much later, but it would be better to explain it now for the video's sake. Now on to the destruction of planet Vegeta. It will happen because Frieza was afraid that the Saiyans were growing too strong, and because of the legend of the Super Saiyan, not because Beerus told Frieza to destroy the planet. The events of the episode of Bardock would remain the same, practically without change. He would see his son being weak and think little of him, and even saying how he regretted sparing those two back on planet Cereal. Goku would also be sent to Earth by Frieza's soldiers to conquer it, rather than his father wanting to save him from the destruction of the planet. While Goku would be sent to Earth, we would see another group of Saiyans that didn't go to planet Vegeta. We would see Kid Vegeta in the destroyed planet after they just conquered it, and with him is Nappa, a young Raditz, and a young Turles, as they would believe they are the last Saiyans in the universe after hearing of planet Vegeta's destruction. But without their knowledge, 4 other Saiyans survive. Goku being sent to Earth, Paragus and Broly, as Broly's immense power helped them survive the explosion of the planet and manages to sneak away from Frieza's army, and Tarble since he was sent away before the destruction of planet Vegeta, but Prince Vegeta does not want to claim him as his younger brother because of his weakness. Also, we would see that Cooler, also known as Frieza's older brother, would be around to see the destruction and also see the space pod of Goku pass by, but like in the normal story, he would not try to intercept it like in the first Cooler movie. Now we finally get into Dragon Ball, the beginning of it all for our main character Goku. Now honestly, the overall story doesn't really need to change. I have seen the 3 movies that are non-canon to the story, and it's practically impossible to add them as they're just basically a retelling of the main story with just a different antagonist than the normal series. For all the retcons in Dragon Ball, I listed them all that was stated in a video made by Totally Not Mark, who made a video listing all the retcons. Most of the retcons he listed doesn't change the overall story since Dragon Ball is the start of the story. Most of the retcons are just bits of information that contradicts previous statements. Of course, if you are interested in watching the video, I will have them listed in the link description down below if you want to check out those videos for every retcon he has listed in his video. The only ones worth mentioning that has a little effect on the story would be Bulma's knowledge of Dragon Balls having a 1-year cooldown, since she stated that after using it for the first time ever in the series, Goku's power pole true use was to connect Korin's tower to Kami's lookout, as before it was just a magical pole given to him by his grandpa. Honestly, we wouldn't have to change how Goku uses his pole to get to the lookout, but it wouldn't be the main true purpose of the power pole and would just remain a magical pole that his grandpa gave him. Goku would just think of extending his pole to reach the lookout, but not connecting the 2 places. Senzu beans first being used as food to keep you full for 10 days, then switching to something that heals you. Now this may be the only retcon that I would actually keep, since the senzu beans are pretty important, and by important I mean used for plot convenience a lot in the future, and sometimes are the reasons that save the Z fighters. So instead of when Goku first eats the senzu bean for the first time, he wouldn't be stuffed, but actually be healed from his hunger pains, allowing him to not be hungry, but he wouldn't exactly be satisfied with just eating a bean. There's also a retcon of Goku's age. At first, he was stated to be 14 and then later de-aged to be 12. However, meaning we are keeping the fact that he is 14, which doesn't affect much of the story, besides the fact that he would be 20 after training with Kami for 3 years rather than 18. There's also the Ultra Divine Water that Goku drank that gave him a power boost, which a lot of fans didn't really like, but honestly this early on in Dragon Ball I feel like something like that would fit in well with the story, so we will keep that in. And it actually did give Goku a power boost, but it was kinda hinted that only those pure enough would not get killed by drinking it. The only plot hole really important in Dragon Ball was the fact of Goku's Ozaru inconsistent size during his first appearance. We will just keep his size similar to that of Gohan and Vegeta's Ozaru forms so that he can help Bulma and the others to break free from their cage and keep him that size. So Yamcha wouldn't be able to hold down Goku's tail to have Pork cut his tail off, so the only option they have is to wait it out until the sunrise so Goku would then revert back to his base form and then they would decide to chop it off. Now with all that said and done, we will go into Dragon Ball Z. Starting now with Raditz, but with the events of the first movie, The Dead Zone. And honestly, this is the only easy movie to fit in the timeline, just placing it before the beginning of the Saiyan saga, but it will have effects that will play into the Saiyan saga. First things first, both Goku and Piccolo would know that Gohan has potential and wouldn't be shocked by it when facing Raditz. Also, Goku would actually train Gohan knowing he has such immense power. Also, Goku and Piccolo would not gawk at the idea of working together in the Saiyan saga since they have done it once during this movie. Now we get into the Saiyan saga, and basically the entire intro and reveal that Goku is a Saiyan and has a brother is technically not a retcon, since it doesn't contradict a previous statement, but in this alternate universe of the real world, the story of Dragon Ball started with it showing Goku as a baby being sent to Earth from space, so having the readers know Goku isn't from Earth. That wouldn't be a shocking reveal to us, but the others in the actual story still would. Here, in a reader's standpoint, we would learn that Goku is a Saiyan from planet Vegeta and that Raditz is his brother. Nothing much changes going forward until when Goku and Raditz are killed by Piccolo. They would not wait a year to use the Dragon Balls to wish Goku back, as he is not in the afterlife since he was killed by Piccolo and those killed by demons cannot go into the afterlife. But also Raditz would state that 3 Saiyans would come that are far stronger than he is, and not just that, but also one Saiyan having his own crew that are all stronger than him, but also would never state when they would show up. Also, I know the Dead Zone movie might not have been a whole year before the Saiyan saga, but we did see Kami use his powers to remove the cooldown himself to use the Dragon Balls again, and seeing how stronger threats are coming to Earth, he will use it again so that they can wish Goku back right away, since again, he is not in the afterlife, being killed by Piccolo, and before in Dragon Ball, Piccolo was stated to be a demon and we're keeping that, so he is in limbo, not in the afterlife. Meaning that in this timeline, Goku would not train with King Kai. Or he still could. Kami is the communicator between the mortal and the afterlife realm, so I would see that Kami would convince King Yama to allow Goku to take Snake Way to train under King Kai. Now here, since Goku was alive and saw all that Gohan could do, he would actually ask Piccolo to train him so that he could also be prepared for the Saiyans and others. Now y'all may doubt Goku actually doing this, but they have an unknown amount of time to train, and with the amount of fighters they might have to fight, Gohan does need to have his training happen and it might need to be rushed, so he would believe Piccolo would be the best person to train him. Kami's hand would be full with training the rest of the Z fighters, plus Piccolo being as strong as almost Goku would think he would be the best to help Gohan tap into his hidden potential, as it seems to be released in tense situations and they could possibly be outmatched with how many threats they have to face. So for the next year, unknown to them but known to us, all the Z fighters would train for the arrival of the Saiyans and their crew. Not knowing how strong they could be, everyone trains even harder than in the canon timeline. The humans would even go into the time chamber to get more training in, with some help from Bulma to bring more food in the time chamber so that all 4 of them could go in at the same time. It would almost be an entire year, just around a month before Vegeta and Nappa would arrive as normal, as suddenly the Z fighters all on Earth could sense 6 huge power levels landing on Earth. Before we get into all that, we must discuss power levels. For Piccolo and Gohan, I will give them just a slight boost, as in this timeline everyone trained even harder, with knowledge of more than just 2 Saiyans are coming to Earth. But they did not use the time chamber like the humans, so Piccolo would be at 4,000 compared to his original 3,500, and Gohan would sit at a 1,200 over his normal 900 power level. Now humans would have the most difference in power. Tien would be at 3,500 compared to his 1,800 in the original timeline. Krillin would be at 3,200 compared to his 1,700. Yamcha would be at 2,900 compared to his 1,400. Chaozu would be at a 1,100 compared to his 600 power level. Now I will state we will have to do some upscaling and downscaling and a bit of explanation between Turles and his crew to tie them in with the original 3 Saiyans, to have it that it works well with the arc and that we can keep most of the same elements of the Tree of Might movie. Now like I said before, Turles was a part of Vegeta's crew, and was with them when Planet Vegeta was destroyed. Turles had a rough time following orders under Vegeta, and more especially Frieza, but Turles tolerated Vegeta until eventually he had enough and wanted to go his own way. He did not want to work under Frieza any longer, but he did still want to work with the other Saiyans in taking Frieza down so that he could actually be on his own and wouldn't need to have his ties with the remaining Saiyans anymore. He would leave Vegeta and the others either by faking his death or just straight up leaving and being labeled as a traitor to the Frieza army. And during that time he built his own crew known as the Crusher Corps. Now for their power levels, there isn't actually any stated power levels, but here we will just adjust it. First things first, we will be just upscaling Nappa a bit, making his power level 10,000 instead of 4,000 he had originally. We will be giving Turles a power level of 9,000 so that he will be able to compete with Goku even after his training with King Kai. But once Turles eats the fruit, being able to grow much stronger than Goku. For the Crusher Corps, we will just say their power levels range from 6,000 being at the highest and 4,000 being at the lowest, as in the movie they were able to beat the Z Fighters rather easily, and Goku was the one having to take them all out on his own. So the movie would play out the same, just changing the fact that Turles and his crew goes to Earth after Vegeta notifies them about what happened to Raditz, and about the Dragon Balls, and that he and Nappa would be a little late. Turles doesn't care too much about the Dragon Balls, but to test out the new seed he got that will grow the Tree of Might to get a fruit that will give him an immense power boost. Most of what happened in the movie would stay except the fact that Goku would be quickly leaving King Kai's planet to help out on Earth. So the Z Fighters would have to fight off the Crusher Corps while Turles stays watching the Tree of Might grow. The Z Fighters would be defeated one by one but wouldn't be killed, as Goku would show up in the nick of time and beat each of the Crusher Corps rather easily. He would then fight Turles but would need to use Kaioken to gain the advantage, and that is when Turles would eat the fruit, boosting his power and beating Goku badly. Goku here wouldn't even think about going Kaioken times 10 as he just recently learned the Kaioken technique, but the movie from here on out would end the same as Turles would die by a spirit bomb filled with the energy from the Tree of Might. The Z Fighters would all recover from the fight with Senzu Beans, and the Dragon Balls would be pretty close from being recharged to be used to fix up the mess that Turles and his crew made. Now to make the rest of the Saiyan saga go on the same is that Goku, after seeing how he barely beat Turles, he returned to King Kai's planet to continue his training to grow as much as he can before the other two Saiyans arrived, as the other Z Fighters would do so as well, after all of them was taken out pretty easily by just the henchmen that weren't even Saiyans. So with Nappa having an upscaled power level, that means Goku would too, as I would make it that he would get a power level of 12,000 when Vegeta and Nappa arrived, just to keep the same tone of Goku bodying Nappa with ease. Now for the rest of the Z Fighters, I would say they would gain a slight boost but nothing too big. Let's just say we add 400 to each of the last stated power levels. Besides Gohan, since he is a half Saiyan, he would have gotten a Zenkai boost, pushing his power level from 1200 to 1800. Now with the Saiyan's arrival, things would play on the same, just with some alteration of power levels. They would still plant the Cybermans and have the Z Fighters fight them first. Now they would deal with them with relative ease. Yamcha would still fight first and beat the Cybermen easily. Now we could have him survive this but would still end up dying during this arc, but I could also see how Yamcha's cocky side would get the better of him and he would meet the same fate as he did in the original story. So either one you want to take, either he still dies by the Cybermen or he survives and gets killed off by Nappa. Now the rest of the Saiyan saga could play out till when Piccolo sacrifices himself to shield Gohan, as that will still happen, but by some sheer fate, Piccolo manages to barely hold on to life. Goku would arrive and give half of his last Senzu Bean to Gohan and Krillin, and would have them bring Piccolo to safety. Goku would face Vegeta as normal, as that fight would relatively be the same, just a tad bit closer than canon, but overall can just go on the way it did normally. Gohan and Krillin would still want to return to help Goku, as Piccolo would tell them to go as he would take care of himself, as the rest would go on as canon, even with Goku letting Vegeta leave. Now before ending the first part, we'll be going into the prelude of the Namek saga. As you all can tell, I did spare Piccolo from his original death, but that doesn't mean it's spared forever. To keep the Namek saga and plot going the same, we'll be going into the Lord Slug movie, and we will let it play out the same since people like Yamcha, Tien, and Chaozu did not appear in the movie. It's easy to just have it as they died in the battle with the Saiyans, and that's why I kept Piccolo alive for now, because honestly that's the only way I could fit the Lord Slug movie in before the Namek saga. So yeah, I kind of had to change that little death from the canon show to fit this movie in this timeline. Korin had 2 last senzu beans to allow Goku and Piccolo to heal up all the way from their injuries, and we'll have it that Slug arrives on Earth about a week after the Saiyans. They haven't gone to space yet, since even Kami was skeptical if he was an actual alien, but during the invasion of Lord Slug, this is when it would actually truly be confirmed that Kami and Piccolo are in fact aliens from another planet. Kami used his powers to recharge the Dragon Balls quickly to resurrect the ones killed by the Saiyans during their invasion, but that is when the Lord Slug movie would start, and Goku and Krillin would try to stop the meteor-like thing from hitting the Earth at the beginning of the movie. Now most of the movie would play out the same, and yes, this time now the false Super Saiyan form is canon and is the stepping stone hinting to the legendary Super Saiyan form later in the saga, but obviously Goku and the others wouldn't call this the false Super Saiyan form because they wouldn't know anything about Super Saiyan yet, so we would just call it like a boosted Goku form. He would even think that maybe his Kaioken has some play into this transformation. One big change is that Piccolo would actually die during these events, and Goku would suffer heavy bodily injuries from the false Super Saiyan form, leading to the Dragon Balls no longer working and making Gohan, Krillin, and Bulma now having to go travel to Namek to use their Dragon Balls since they no longer have them on Earth, setting up the same start to the Namek saga in around the same time, give or take. And that's where we leave it off for now. Tell me how y'all think about the first part and how I did with the beginning of this What If. I know I may have stretched some speculations and did repeat the Kami can recharge your Dragon Balls a lot, but when I was writing this first part, I heavily underestimated how hard it would be to add the movies into the timeline without majorly affecting the main sagas, and on top of that, of having to remove any retcons to the entire story. What more changes will the story have into the Namek saga? How will Cooler play into the story now that he is canon? How will I be able to fit every single movie into one continuous timeline? What could have happened differently? Leave your thoughts down in the comments down below. I would love to hear them. If y'all are interested and enjoyed, please leave a like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to be alerted whenever I post another part. Thank y'all so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next part. See ya.